We're going to have a talk by Kevin Mooney tonight about using AngularJS inside the Django Admin. I'm a big fan of the Django Admin, but there's very few resources on doing cool stuff inside it. So we've got somebody that's doing cool stuff inside it that's going to be talking to us tonight. And the beer and tacos tonight are courtesy of UStudio, and I think we have a few people from UStudio here. Josh Marshall, are you all set up and ready to go?
Yeah. Okay.
Josh is founder and CTO, director of technology. The guy for technology when it comes to a startup. It's whatever you want to call that title. Josh is that guy over at UStudio, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what they're doing.
So I'll be pretty quick here, but yeah, I head up the engineering team at UStudio, and like most startups in Austin, we are hiring. So real quickly, what we do is we create applications that allow companies, enterprises to do more with video. What that means is get video throughout the organization, everybody from marketing to sales to support and training, just help people get their video assets around the company and use them in the different integrations. So we focus on very simple user interfaces for the clients of the application. So it's drag and drop into a bunch of different destinations. These show up in everything from Salesforce to your website to mobile apps. And then on the back end, we build out lots of REST APIs and frameworks and all that kind of stuff to enable developers to provide their own integrations and provide their own experiences. So we are hiring. We're a small team. I think the engineering team is now 6 people total. And we're looking to grow. We're looking for both full stack engineers, if you believe that that's a real thing, which I do. And we're hiring for UX and a number of other things in product. So come talk to me if you're interested. We test first. We feel pretty strongly about that, but we also talk about it all the time, right? What does it mean to test first? What are we testing? How do we ensure that this small team can support, the number of APIs, the number of integrations that all of our clients are building on top of our platform? So again, we're API focused. Also, in addition to hiring, we have, again, a number of APIs and frameworks. I want to talk a little bit about that. So everything in our system, we put into the REST API first. So there's nothing in any interface that isn't available to an in-developer. And that means things like transcoding and publishing and distributing out to CDNs and tracking playback in all of the different environments. That's all part of the platform. So if you are building out a mobile app, or you're putting lots of video on your website or into your support channels, or you're trying to extend your product and provide just more video, more interactive content inside whatever application you're building, we think we're a good fit for that. So come talk to us about that. In addition, we've recently sort of soft launched our HTML5 Player framework. So it's HTML, CSS. Let me see. Oh, wrong direction. So it's a theme system, just HTML, CSS. So just all the stuff that you're writing every day, and you upload that theme. You also have a JavaScript module system with an event hook where you can actually talk to the outer page. So a number of actions inside the player can talk to the outer page. You can do a number of really cool things. I'll show you one fun thing in a second. This is just a couple of different themes, but again, because it's just HTML, we let you do any arbitrary thing you want to do in that space, which is a little different than a lot of the other player frameworks. So that's a couple of simple themes, but a little more fun example is, this is going to be a little small. This is a player that we threw together that actually looks at the content inside the video, and oh no, breaks. Oh well. Sometimes it works. No, this particular one is kind of fun, but we're actually looking inside the video. We're finding QR codes, and we actually bring in Twitter feeds dynamically based on the content of the video. Don't know why it's not showing up, but anyway, there's some really cool things that you can do with the Player framework. So if you are integrating video, if you are working with trying to figure out what players you want to use, what destinations you want to go to, you should come talk to us. So that's pretty much it.
Don't worry about turning it off. again for sponsoring tonight. So the way this works for people that aren't here, we have a little bit of socializing beforehand, the drinks, food, and stuff. Then we have one presentation. We'll take a break between that. Everybody can grab another drink and sign up for lightning talks. I know I have one for tonight. I'm hoping to have some more. So if anybody wants to give a talk, something interesting you're working on, something cool you've seen in the last few weeks that you want to share with the group, you can do slides if you want. You don't have to if you just want to get up and chat. Or if you have somebody that you want to volunteer, you could possibly do that as well. We're not above that. The sign up will be back on the whiteboard here in the back. So during the break, if you have something you want to talk about, put it up there. And with that, there are some chairs up here, and there's another TV that I don't know if you guys can see back there, but there's a TV that you'll be really close to see the slides if you want to. So if anybody wants to come up here, you're welcome to it. Otherwise, Kevin, go for it.
Thanks. All right, so I think the first thing we got to do is figure out how to flip the TV back.
Yep. Can't run from.
And I'm going to watch.
Or you watch The Godfather.
This may be it. Look at that. All right, so I'm going to try something new because like the new Keynote just appeared on my Mac today. So I hooked it up to my phone. Your mileage may vary. We'll see what happens. So we're gonna be fooling around with the Django Admin a little bit. So I guess just a little bit about myself. My name is Kevin Mooney. I work for a company called WebCube. At KMooney is where you can find me everywhere. So the Django Admin, right? Right? Come on, give it a hand, right? It's awesome at first. So actually, can I get a show of hands from you guys? Like, how many people are using the admin for something in production? Anything? That's a lot of people. Oh boy, oh boy. All right, there's a lot of expertise in this room. I'm gonna have to look out. All right. So how many of you like, is it meeting all your needs? Like, raise your hand if the Django Admin is in production and meeting your needs. Like, are people coming to you and asking you for stuff? It's, Travis, it's in production and meeting all your needs?
Oh, meeting all these? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought you said people were coming to me and asking.
So, yeah, so there are some things, right? So there's this sort of like, this graph, developer productivity in Django's admin. I don't know if it's called the Django admin or Django admin or Django's admin, possessive. So here's where you just sort of starting out. Everything's fine. You're writing your first like admin.py. You've extended a class and put pass into it and registered it. That's great. You're looking at this thing a lot. And if you're anything like me, when you're making your technology decisions, oh no. If you're anything like me, this philosophy thing here, like this is like a call out, so you ignore those. You just skip over this and figure out where the code is and what you can type to get your job done a little faster. And all your users love it. They love you. And you're a programmer and your users love you, and that's like a rare feeling. That's a rare feeling. I know. And they think you made this website that lets them administer a website, and that's awesome. They love you. Like, it's cool. It is so cool. You're going down to the water cooler, like down to the little K-cup Keurig machine, and people are like, who's that guy? It's that guy. That's you. You're cool. You're making it happen at your company. Until one day your phone rings or you get an IM. It's 2014. You probably get an IM, and somebody says, "Well, why can't it do this?" So you've already set the bar pretty high because the Django admin is awesome at first. So the bar's pretty high, and now people think that you're, a rock ninja, and you're the Fonz, and you can do it. And it's more challenging, and you sort of fall off this cliff here. This is the cliff of user expectation. And then people are actually asking you, like, why do I need a developer to help me do this non-development task? Because they feel like they should be able to do it, and they can't quite do it, and it's hard. And they're asking, well, who decided to use this thing? And it was me. It was me. I vowed I was not going to say you and be mean to you guys because you're all awesome, and it's me. It's my fault. So you go back to the documentation to figure out how to fix the problem, and you kind of notice this thing here, and you're reading this philosophy, and you're like, I don't know, generating. It's really small on my phone. It's generating something, blah blah blah. I don't know. It was written for a newsroom. Well, I don't work in a newsroom. I make a CMS for marketers, not for news people. I thought it was the same. It's not. And then you keep looking at this thing. You keep looking at it, and all of a sudden, you see this here, right? This little guy, and you're like, this is not for. Okay, so that's okay. I don't. So now you're in the trough of despair. You're right here. This is you. This is you. This is me. I'm sorry. I was going to say me the whole time. This is me. I am in the trough of despair. This is terrible. And so I go back to that philosophy. You can hear me sighing. I'm having flashbacks. This is so. And you're like, well, visitors are not site managers because I could tell from that philosophy statement. And Django's awesome because it has a philosophy, and that's great. And so, okay, well, visitors are not site managers, and my users are not visitors. Ergo, my users are site managers. Is that right? Am I not seeing this right? Right? So maybe not. I don't know. Are they? No. It turns out they're not website managers. They're just people who are trying to do a job. They have a computer that's got the worse resolution than yours does, probably. If they don't, I feel for you. And they're just people who are trying to run a business, and that makes they're running into things because this admin, it gets you 80% of the way there, and there's this misapprehension that happens because your users are coming to you and they're like, why can't I do it? And you go, oh, it's easy. You just have to do da 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 da. And I don't think I've ever talked to another software developer who hasn't at least once said to me, and I've been guilty of this myself. I'm probably as of even this week, I've been guilty of this, where they're like, oh, my users are the dumbest users. They just don't know how to use the thing, And that's really that's not cool. It's not cool to feel that way because they are just people who are just trying to do their job and get the computer out of the way, And so are us developers. We're just trying to do a job and get the computer out of the way, and it's just not cool to be at war with your users, right? So the question is, how do you get using? So you've already committed, right, to Django. You're already committed to the admin. You're already committed to your non-administrator, college-educated, pretty smart, not engineer users sort of using this thing that maybe it was designed 80% of the way for people like them. Or maybe it wasn't designed at all for people like them, but you're using it anyway. So how do you get to this peak of user productivity? Because developer productivity at some point, once the project's lived long enough, it's not what it used to be. So how do you help people? How do you get up to this little spot way up here? So I think part of what you have to do is think about what the Django admin is not awesome at, because it's awesome. It's awesome. It actually is. We use it in the product that I work on, and I'm happy every day. So I'm not ragging on it at all. and I'm actually really like thrilled to have like such a great thing that I can work with. But it's not great for like presenting and modifying structured data. It's not really made for like workflows. Like maybe you're trying to build a fulfillment system and you tried to do that in the Django admin, and maybe that was a bad decision and you need to live with it and think about what you've done. And you know, it's got some problems with aesthetics. You know, it looks the way it looks. It's fine. There are ways around that. Like, you know, you can use Django admin tools. There are other themes, there are other styles. Like that's a talk that's been done, I think, a few times. And you know, workflows. Like honestly, I don't have an answer for workflows in the admin. If anybody can help me, like talk to me after, that would be really cool. But what I can talk about a little bit that it's not awesome at is structured data and sort of letting people work with things like lists and dictionaries and making like okay interface elements that go inside the admin and actually help people do their jobs. And also make your job easier because your IM is not always, your Google Talk, whatever, is not always like beeping at you, and you know, there aren't always angry people emailing you. So the structured data problem, as I see it, I don't know, I mean, and forgive me because I don't really know what I'm doing, but it seems like a user, like in my case, I run into a problem where we have a lot of users who have system A, which might even be like the system. It might be like an e-commerce system. It might be the Django software that we, you know, built for them. And then they have like system B. They have some other system, and they need to like map these fields. And they want to change those mappings, and it has to be configurable. And I don't want to do the configuration for them all the time. And so, like, I don't know, like just to make it like kind of clear. It's gonna be so cool if this works. So you might have fields like A, B, and they need to map to like X, Y, and Z. And so like A might map to Z, B might map to X, and C might map to, I guess, Y. I think that's what's left. So, man, that looks worse on the big screen. All right, so I guess I'm not gonna do that anymore. But the point is that they want to map these fields over here to these guys over here. And I mean, the most obvious thing that you can do is to use JSON, right? Like that's, I mean, what's it for? I mean, I don't know, but that's a thing it can be used for, is storing dictionaries, and dictionaries can be used to store field mappings. And if you really think about it, you know, and you're trying to map like from one set of things to a whole nother set of things, like your dictionary, actually the keys have to be the map to values, and the values in your dictionary have to be the map from values, because you might be mapping like from one thing to multiple other things. And so you actually have to have something that's kind of the opposite, which is not that hard if you know about data structures. But if you're like a guy who just wants more clicks on his site, like that's hard. And so using JSON and just like, you know, presenting it as a text field, which I don't know if you've ever seen that in a Django admin. I've seen that in a Django admin once or twice. One more times. And so you can do that, and then, you know, you're done, and this presentation's over. Thank you very much. But, you know, like I said, the pro is like there's no work to do, right? It's not that hard to do it. The con is you have raw JSON in the text field. And you can see here, while I was preparing this presentation last night, I put this in red. It actually came up more like a little bit more pinkish here. It was really intended to be like a rage red, but this gets the point across too. And the the font is bigger and it's in rage caps, and I don't like. It's really important that most 99% of the time don't put raw JSON in a text field. It's not cool to do that.
What is the 1 or 2% of the time?
Actually, I wanted to talk about that. So because I thought about this, I was like, well, is this? Am I overplaying this hand? And I think maybe the 1 or 2% of the time is if you're building the system for yourself, and you got better than a B in data structures. And maybe you have an entire team. Everybody who's going to use this has a degree in computer science, and they never ever make mistakes. And also if they never make mistakes, they also never their keyboard never there's never a flip bit or something. They don't have a Bluetooth that just randomly sends weird text. So you shouldn't do that. Because the chances of those things happening are, it's infinitesimally low, right? Even if you are building the system for yourself, maybe it's okay because you have nobody to be mad at but yourself, and sometimes it's better to be mad at yourself than somebody else. But other than that, just don't do that. So, another choice you have is actually to refactor your model, because that might actually be an appropriate thing to do. Again, this is a way out of this presentation. This is a way out of this talk. You should think about okay, so somebody needs to store this dictionary. Well, maybe what I really need is a different model. Are all the fields always going to be the same on a dictionary, or is this list always going to be well, I mean, if you're storing lists, you probably should just refactor it. But if you're trying to store other structured data, think about whether those requirements for this this weird wart on your system, think about whether those requirements are really sort of revealing to you that maybe you've done something else wrong, and doing another wrong thing isn't going to make everything right. Even then you might still have some migration issues, and this might, it might not accommodate your needs. Maybe you need to actually have something like this field mapping where it's always going to be variable. So your third choice is you can make a new widget in the Django Admin, which is one of the reasons that Django Admin is really awesome. I hope that you guys remember that it's awesome. So, pros, you get to demonstrate some empathy for your users instead of just saying that they're dumb for not understanding data structures. You give power to your users, and you're also, you're providing some long-term value to yourself. Because if you build something that gives people power and takes away the possibility that they're going to make a lot of mistakes, then you are not going to have to. So the problem is, right, when I was going to say me. So the problem is when something goes wrong because of software I wrote where the UX is weird and somebody has to be super smart to use it, I'm the guy who has to put out the fire later. So doing something like this is kind of like an insurance policy, so that you have fewer fires to put out in the future. And the con really is that, hey, maybe you should refactor. So if you're using a widget, if you're going to build a new widget, first you kind of need a way to store this JSON, which we kind of decided. You could also use XML. That was a punchline. But you could use XML instead, because it really doesn't matter. As long as you're serializing to something that's storable as text, you'd pretty much be fine. And so you have to do that. You could build your own JSON field that basically when you write to it, it would serialize, and then when you read from it, it would deserialize, which means you put a Python object in it, and then you hit save, and I almost said transparently, but actually opaquely, it would be turned into text, and then when you read it later, it would be turned back into object, which is convenient because you don't really want to be dumping JSON and reading JSON all the time. or maybe you do, I don't know. So this is my first sort of naive attempt. Oh, and also like the JSON field stuff. I have a slide about this later on, but we can skip it because we'll have already talked about it. The JSON field stuff, you can like get something like from PyPy that just has a JSON field, or you can roll your own. For the purposes of this, I was feeling a little lazy, so I just got the one from PyPy, and it worked really good. It has like 63% test coverage, and honestly, like instead of writing your own, you would probably, like, it would be cool if you could get it to like 65% test coverage. And if, you know, fewer people than are even in this room did that, then it would have 100% test coverage, and that would be awesome. So, you know, here's your admin.py. Like, I'm sure that you guys have all seen one like this, but this one is mine. So, you know, you're importing your admin, you're doing your stuff, you got a little class here, pass, it just doesn't do anything, and then you register it. It's great. And for this little tiny toy project, like literally I have nothing. I have, you know, you import this JSON field, which I got from the internet. And you extend your field mapping, you stick in a mapping owner, which is text field. You could make that a car field and it would look better in the admin. Note to self. And you know, you create this little field map guy and it's a JSON field. And that's what it looks like. So let's see, maybe I'll try to draw again. Because I'd like to call your attention to this thing here. Yeah, this thing here. And so, you know, it's just plain text. It's no good. Or maybe it's okay. I mean, you know, I might be talking to people who don't really agree with me. But let's look at the field actually for a second, because this is actually kind of neat. Or it's neat to me, I don't know, I find really strange things compelling. So I have my my shell open already. I hope that, is it, oh my gosh. It looks so much bigger on my screen. That's better. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So, oh boy, I hope I remember what this is called. Field map, models. Oh, what happened? What happened? Field map, models, import. Okay, right? Okay, let me try again.
Try to tap complete?
No. It just recorded something different than what I thought it typed. Okay, here we go. And we'll see if we can remember what this model is. Oh, field mapping. That's what it is. And so let's say we got field mapping.objects. All. And I think I have one. Yeah, I have exactly one field mapping. So there it is. And when you look at the field mapping, I think there's a thing called field map on there. This is alphabetical, so it's actually not as hard as you think. There we go, so there's a field map on there. And see, the problem is, right, like, I'm sure that, like all you guys are, like, used to doing stuff like this, but, like, your users are not used to doing stuff like this. So even though, like, it's pretty easy for me to type this with one hand and, like, be talking on a microphone and giving a presentation, like, and it would be easy for anybody here to do that. Like, it's not easy for your users to like look through this junk and like find this, like, and go, oh yeah, it's alphabetical, duh. So like, that's kind of, you know. Anyway, so what you can see here is it's just you know, it's a Python dictionary, and you can make it into a different Python dictionary. And you can save it. And oh, but even, yeah, there we go. And then you can and when we run the server, in the admin. I don't think I even have any non-admin pages on here.
You're on 8001.
8001. Here we go. And so you can see the field mapping here, go in here, and oh no, that's the thing at the end that's going to be helping. So let me revert this to before. I wonder if this is going to work. Let's find out. So I think it will. No. All right. Well, let's not go down this path. But anyway, what you would see is a text field that has the field mappings, pretty much what you would expect. The problem really is that your users would pretty much have to do what I just did to do their jobs, and that's not. I don't know. I mean, that's not really okay. Right, so anyway, that's how the JSON field works. Like I said, I downloaded it from the internet, so you guys can do the same. It's super easy. And so then the next part of that is like, what happens with the presentation of that stuff? You know, as you can sort of see from my before screenshot, which I'm just like doing absolutely the wrong thing. I thought that I had a button on here I have to swipe. It's really cool, but it's kind of like. Okay, here we go. So, you know, what you can see here is it's just plain old text field. The widget that comes out of the box is actually kind of a little bit helpful because it formats the JSON for you. That's not, I didn't make that pretty to take that screenshot, that just happens. But again, like, you know, for most people, like they don't want to, like maybe your mapping doesn't have like 3 obvious like fields on it. There's a lot of reasons this is a bad idea. So anyway, like complicated widgets, if you want to do a complicated widget, like you need to have a little bit of interactivity. And since you're using web browsers, you have to use JavaScript. I mean, I guess you could use Dart. Is Dart the one, the Chrome one? That would have gotten big laughs at Austin Jazz. So you pretty much are going to use JavaScript. So let's talk about how to do that. Let's hook up the plumbing first. So the first thing you got to do is hook up the plumbing for all of your Django stuff to work. So kind of the way that I like to approach this is like I write the widget first, I plug the widget into a form field, and then I just keep trying until the thing I expect is actually presented in the admin, and then I kind of go to work actually making it interactive, you know, functional. So let's look at the widgets.py. It doesn't have to be called that. This is not like a Django convention. Well, maybe it is a Django convention, but it's not. It's a convention. So it doesn't have to be called that. You can call it whatever you want. Nothing really special here. You can see I just set these choices in here arbitrarily. You could get those from somewhere else, obviously. And so the init's not that interesting. It just calls a parent. This is an inner class, so this is kind of unfortunate because this is actually all inside your widget class. So you see here, the class is here, indentation is important, and I preserved the indentation across the slides. So this is indented from back before, and so this is an inner class. This is inside your widget class. And the render also is inside the widget class. So what's happening here? And I feel like a lot of people don't really do this too much because it's like I think that a lot of people consider it like sort of like the least fun part of software development. I think it's super fun. So this inner class here, this CSS. Is basically what you're telling Django is when I render forms that have these fields in them that are using these widgets, like make sure that CSS gets included at the top, and also that where it says all there, that's like the media type. So you can have like different media types, like you can have screen, you can have like a print media type. So if somebody wants to print off your admin page, you could actually have custom CSS to make it pretty when somebody prints your admin page, that would be like such dedication. Like, I don't even know, that would be amazing. If I printed an admin page and found that somebody took the time to make that happen, like, I would be blown away. So that's that, and that's why this is a dictionary to a tuple. So you would have like multiple CSS files there if you for some reason needed multiple CSS files to make your widget work, which can happen because if you're using like a crazy like calendar widget or something that you download from the internet, which I love to do, you know, like it could be something like it might require that you include all kinds of CSS. JS is the same deal. And in this case, it's just saying like, hey, make sure AngularJS is at the top, and make sure mapping.js is at the top. There's a template tag that Django uses, and I don't remember what it's called right now. It might be called media tags, maybe, that actually causes it to look at all of these intermediate classes and cause it to render the right stuff. What's interesting about that is that it's not really I mean, there's a lot of debate about, like, in the web development community, as I understand it. I think that there's a little bit of debate, and you can see I'm like starting to hedge. I'm like, I think some might say there's a little bit of debate about what the best practice is for including like JavaScript files, especially. What Django likes to do is just include them in order synchronously, like in a sort of old-fashioned-ish way. There are lots of other ways to do that. You could use like require.js. You could use like other things that will sort of like pull all of your JavaScript into like one big file that you're going to include, and you're going to have like a build process to push your websites out. Since the Django admin doesn't really do that, I would prefer to do it the way it likes. Since that's what building your own widgets like fit inside the admin, like that's like the whole point is you're kind of playing by its rules. So to continue to play by its rules, like just use this stuff. I mean, if you want to get crazy and experiment, like go for it. But for me, it makes more sense. I pulled this out of my pocket and drew a big red line on there. But for me, it makes more sense to just stick with the way that Django likes to do it. And then this render is pretty straightforward. This choices stuff, like that would probably be better. Like it would be better to call that data. But it's not like, I don't know. I mean, my variable name is like it was late, and I was trying to make it work. So so this would probably be better to call it like data. I hope you enjoyed this code review. And it would be probably helpful to call this like self.data. But the short version is like that it's updating that with some stuff from Django's from what the value of the form element or the input would be when it gets presented. So that's what this value parameter is. And so basically what it's doing is it's dumping that all out to JSON. So you have like a string. That's what's in choices. And then all of that stuff gets passed into this render to string, which renders the mapping widget. And it renders, it renders the mapping widget, which we should probably talk about. So let's actually look at the template. There's a couple things that I don't know, are kind of fun about that. I don't know how to make the presentation go away. Escape. Good guess. So let's look at this template. Let's first look at what's actually in this directory so I can find it. It's in field map, templates. Okay. And we'll edit anyway. Oh no. I wonder if I can make this a little bit smaller and fix the... Okay, we'll put it there. So this is the template. So and all this template does, and it's, I don't know, okay, 68 lines of like HTML-ish looking stuff. You can see it's not all HTML. And so what this is the HTML that gets rendered when the widget is rendered. So this is the HTML basically for that form element. If this were a simple element, like this would just be like text area, or this would just be like input. In fact, what you can see down here is there is a text area, and that's actually going to be hidden by the CSS. And the reason to hide the text area is to have, basically, give Django the form element it expects in the admin, because the reason that it's so easy to use a text area to present JSON to people and have them edit it is that's what the Django admin, like, it's just, you're not changing too much. And so the Django admin expects there to be a text area that has some data in it that is the form element. And so everything up above this is really just like sugar, to cause that text area to be populated with the right stuff. And so there's a couple things, and so the downside of this, if you've ever generated JavaScript with PHP or something, not that I've ever done that, the thing that's kind of interesting about this is if you look closely, you'll see, okay, so we got these two brackets, and we all use Django, and that's familiar to us. And so this is like, this is a template variable in the Django template. Same thing here, right? Choices, that's fine. This mapping one though, this one's weird. Because this one is actually, this is an Angular template. And Michael turned around and looked at the audience, shocked. So this is actually an Angular template variable, and this is the contents of that text area, and this thing's actually going to be built up by the rest of the widget. So the thing that can be a little bit brain breaking, although it wasn't terrible with this, is when you're mixing template languages. I don't know. I mean, there's room for debate about that. In this case, I don't know, it works. In this case, I think it's actually necessary to make it fit into the Django admin and to make it sort of work. You'll also notice that there's a bunch of like NG looking attributes here that are not HTML. If you know HTML, you know that's not HTML. And so yeah, short version is, this is a client-side template variable. This is a server-side template variable, and this is not HTML, and we'll talk about that next. So what's the NG stuff? Because Angular is really hard and enterprisey, I guess, I don't know. So it's actually not that bad. Like there's a learning curve of about an hour. Once you if you look at the documentation, the first time I looked at it, I was like, no. Like this is actually the worst of both worlds, because it's template spaghetti, and it's also got weird words for classes and stuff. And I can't believe that you would mix those two things and make those two terrible tastes taste great together. But they do. And so we're using AngularJS, that's why the HTML looked a little weird. I like it better than a mess of jQuery, callbacks. It's good. And it's got some pretty cool data binding features. So ng controller, ng click, ng model, ng bind. Those were the things, as I was sort of looking through my template, those are the things that were sort of there. So ng controller is pretty easy. You put the name of your controller in there, and we'll look at the controller in a minute. And it just tells you hey, this block of HTML-ish stuff, probably actually Angular template language, I don't even know what it is. This block of stuff maps to this specific controller. In this case, I have a thing called the field mapper controller, which I'll talk about in a minute. And so it tells Angular which one to work with. So I'll show you that controller. Or I'll show you my background image. Oh, here we go. I'm almost done, you guys, so we'll be able to get some more tacos in a second. I hope it's as fun to watch me type as it is for me to be typing. Hey, there it is. So we got a mapping, we'll edit anyway. And so this, there's a bunch of junk in here, and it's all jammed into one little file. It's actually not even that long, 146 lines. That's actually not bad, considering what you get out of it. So this controller, what you can see here, there's a couple interesting things, and I know this is like a Python meetup, not a JavaScript meetup, so I'm gonna try to get over it real quick. But the basics are, you have a module. In this case, we actually have lots of apps, and the reason that we have lots of apps is we can't control how many widgets a person who's using the admin is going to choose to put on the page. So we kind of have to look at all of them. This interpolate provider, something I neglected to mention earlier, and actually you'll see it in a subsequent slide, but Angular uses double curly braces for its template escapes too. So if you are using Django templates, which use double curly braces for template escapes, and Angular, all of your Angular variables are just going to get turned into nothing by the Django template engine, and you don't want that. So you tell it to look for these instead. And this is, just like curly, and then square, and then curly again. What I tried to do, and I was so unhappy that it didn't work, is I tried to do this. I was hoping beyond hope that I could do that because it would make me feel at home. Nostalgia. Anyway, so that's the start and end symbols. This directive, all this does is it looks for a specific key, which is enter, and does a thing when you press enter. That's not a default behavior. So for what I wanted to do, I wanted that a lot. So you need to create a directive to do that. And I don't know the dictionary or the Angular glossary definition of what a directive is, but it's a thing that it's like you're basically just telling it hey, this app can do this. So it's in a lot of ways, it's analogous to writing a custom template tag in some ways. I don't know, it's kind of a bad analogy, but anyway, and then this controller, which is the field mapper controller. This scope variable is basically this is the thing that you can use to bind your HTML to the scope. It's really neat. And so anyway, having seen the field mapper controller, we can sort of go back and look at the rest of it. All right, so ng-click, evaluate and execute code in the context of your controller when the specific element with that click attribute is clicked. In the code, we looked at it. So yeah, so in this case, when you click on this thing, it calls a function inside that controller called showAddForm, and then whatever's in that function gets executed, gets run. ngModel. So what that does is it binds your input to a property in the controller scope. So as you change the value in the input, the scope, the property in your controller scope will get changed. I'm going to go back to the code. It feels a little awkward to flip back and forth. ngBind. So what that does is it takes the contents of your current element scope and it binds that to. It binds the contents of the current element to a property in your controller scope. So what that means is like that element, like it'll just fill it in with that variable. So you can use that instead of using the template language, and there are some good reasons to do that. Mostly, like if you type in this whole template and then you display it and the JavaScript hasn't run yet, you're going to get like the variables in it. And so you can use ngBind to, instead of using those variables, you can say, hey, you know what, the contents of this div is this variable. So just always use that, and then you can sort of avoid using the template language. You can avoid using the template variables for a lot of cases. Client-side templates, we already kind of talked about that at length. The thing that's going to bite you if you're trying to use it with Django is that it uses the double mustaches to escape variables. And like I said, Django will turn those into nothing, so just change them. And you can use those start symbol and end symbol methods on the interpolator provider to do that. Okay, and the other thing is, you actually need to bootstrap a controller per widget. Well, I bootstrap an app per widget. I don't really know if there's a better way to do that, but I think it works really well for me because you can have like lots of field mappings and there's no conflict. Which, the first time anybody ever tries to write a JavaScript widget, they always have a conflict. They always like scoop up too many elements and then maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Or probably it works when you test it, and then it doesn't work after that because you test it with only one element, and then one of your users comes along and demands flexibility. Gosh, so let's look at the thing. I kind of accidentally showed you guys before sort of what a final product could look like, and also show the text area that this thing is actually working with. So. What you saw before was a field map that just had some.
Make it bigger.
Oh, make it bigger.
Thank you.
So what you had before was a field map that was just a JSON field. And this actually also is just a JSON field, but instead of presenting that to the user, you're presenting like a small, like pretty lightweight application. And what I want to do real quick here is just find that text area, which is this guy. And you can see I have a display none in my CSS, which I didn't share with you. There's like an app that does like a GitHub report card that looks at like the code you write and tells you like your profile. And it says that I write a lot of Python code and a surprising amount of CSS, and nothing else. It's really weird. And it's true somehow. Okay, so this text area is ordinarily not something that's actually going to be presented to your users. And so you have these source fields, B and A, I don't know. Oh, and the reason that those come up actually is because I manually changed those in the console before from something that was actually meaningful. So what I'm going to do is just X this out and show you like source fields. We can think of some like phone number, zip code. And the other thing is, like you can, all these buttons just have bindings into the controller that let you, that basically say what to do. So add field will just add a new field and close this box, and add and continue will just add a new field. This little X is bound to a controller that says, hey, close this box. This add button is bound to the controller, and the add button says, hey, show the box. We can do that. And actually, I'll add cell phone as well. All right. So if I'm like my marketing person and I have a form on this side and I have the fields that I pulled out of like a MailChimp integration or something. I don't know what it could possibly be for. So you have the phone number. You want to map that to telephone, right? And so it sort of presents it that way. And you can see down here, it's presented backwards because this is actually how it's stored. And what's nice is since the user never sees this, they never have to have like they didn't have to get a B in data structures to understand that. So zip code goes to postal code, easy. First name goes to this Bill first name. And then cell phone, which maybe in your API that you're actually mapping that to, like maybe that's a required field. That's okay because you can map your source field again. And so those are some of the things that you might have to like consider when you're dealing with people who want to configure things on their own, and you don't want them to type this in because typing this in is hard and clicking on stuff is easy. And what's more is you've actually, like, what's amazing about this, not to get too philosophical about it, but it's really easy for us to always sort of like think about things like on a spectrum from like, okay, so either it's going to be easy or it's going to be powerful, and you have to choose which one it's going to be. But there's actually, to mix the metaphor, there's like a third leg to that stool, which is if you work a little bit harder, you can make something that's actually powerful and really easy, and that's like the thing that makes people happy. And it's really cool if you can like make something that makes people happy just because they're surprised that somebody went to the effort to do it. Oh, and hey, I'll save this to show you guys that it actually works. But there's no reason to suspect that it wouldn't work, so it all goes into the text field, which is just like any plain old Django form field. Oh. Okay, so it's saved. And you can see that the map fields are still there. And if we dug into the shell, you would see that the terminal, like it all works. Like this is a Python object that you're making and maintaining and working within the admin, and it's not hard. That's kind of all I got. I think the message is, it's partly like we're fooling around with the admin. It's partly like, here's how you can like inherit from some classes and do some stuff. But it's also like just like empower your users and make it easy, and they will love you and pay you a lot. So, they're smart. Like, and your users are not dumb. Your users are really smart, and they worked really hard in college, and they deserve to be treated with respect, even if they don't computer as good as you can. And so, yeah, that's hard work, but it's super fun. And if you want to talk to me after about this stuff, you can. I'll be around, and if you want to talk to me on Twitter, you can. I'm at @KMooney. So thank you.
Anything other than Angular?
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh no, I want to talk about Angular. No, I understand your question. It's a good question. What are the alternatives, right?
Yeah.
So what he asked was, did you look at anything other than Angular? There are some alternatives. I used to think that Backbone was really good, and then I tried to build something kind of big in it. And then I started thinking not so highly of it. I've heard the words Ember.js. I don't even know what they mean. Joe?
So one of the problems I always have with the admin is like foreign key, many-to-many relationships, and trying to make that not require a lot of thought for end users. Do you think that doing something like this, where you had a nice JavaScript-y front end, is that even like an option? In your opinion?
Is it, okay, so the question is it an option to do something like this to sort of mitigate the complexity of foreign key relationships and sort of putting those together in Django? Is that right? I've never thought about that. I mean, I guess if you, so the downside is, as I'm thinking about it, the only way that I could see to do it would be to like build an API, like to build like a REST API, and then you're kind of just circumventing the admin altogether. Which, I mean, you could do something like that. I would want to think about it more, not in front of 40 people. But so my answer is maybe. It sounds like there's some some potential to do that. I'm not sure though. Do you guys want to heckle? Anybody? Thank you.
Okay, guys, there are still some more tacos back there. There's still some soda, some beer. Grab some of those. We'll take about a 5-10 minute break and then come back for lightning talks. I have a lightning talks thing up on the whiteboard. If you want to give one, slides, no slides, doesn't matter. Come up and tell us what you're interested in talking about right now.
Yeah.
If I wanted to give a lightning talk, could I use a slide?
Is it for coding demos?
No, it's like a project that I'm senior on. German. Yeah, that's fun. Oh, thank you. iPhone and tablet thing. Yeah, I tried it out. I didn't practice with it. Yeah. Kind of works. Yeah. A little quirks here and there, but it's probably better than anything else coming. Exactly. Yeah. I think. But I've been trying this thing she's done. It almost seems like you could make your own form and outside admin easier than some of the things that you did. It's almost I think we're going to get the stuff like that. If you want to just do it, like, of course, if you want to do it all from scratch, you're still going to have to do this stuff. So, it's kind of fun. Okay. And all that. I guess I wasn't sure exactly how the binding controller works. I was going pretty fast at the end, so I looked at this has been going for like almost an hour. I need to wrap this up. Right. So you include your Angular, then you include something that's specific to your organization. something that tells Angular to start off. It'll tell it what elements to and it will have codes that'll be displayed in the yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's just the widget. That's all I was focusing on. It's just the
And how do you get those elements to use admin inside?
okay, so the way that works is that's all in the testing. So because so you see that I was really and I think I actually left this. That's going to be so what you do is you have
Are you a web guy or a guy at web? Actually, I end up using This has been great. Yeah, it's a good interview. Yeah, I've been here now since here for January, March, April. Yeah, I'll probably leave again. That's a weird one. Yeah, well, I'm Chicago and Boston. Summer's there, gorgeous. Yeah, summer in Boston, like, it gets up to 85 sometimes. Yeah, sweltering. So this is randomized quality student at the time. I thought you just said, no, I was right up front.
Actually, we are it's actually
I've been doing on my current job. It's really just like like learn is like
okay, guys. We've got 4 people that are going to do lightning talks tonight, so if everybody can make their way back to their seats. What? I said if you can make your way back to your seats, we're going to get started with the lightning talks. I'm going to walk back here so I can read this. Our first one is going to be Tyler with Cassandra UX testing.
Hey guys, some of you may remember me a couple months ago in February. I gave an introduction to Cassandra here. So we're actually trying to make Cassandra easier for people to use. So we want to do some testing to see how people install Cassandra and are able to work with it that have never used it before. So for any of y'all who didn't rush out and install Cassandra right after my talk, we're looking for volunteers to basically just go through a process of installing Cassandra, getting it running, and writing a very simple Python program to interact with it. And we're going to give everybody who participates a $100 gift card and enter you in a drawing to potentially go to the Cassandra Summit that's in San Francisco, and I think it's in August. So we'll pay for a flight and hotel room for that. So if anybody's interested in doing that, all you have to do is essentially bring your laptop to the DataStax office, which is at 5th and 35, on 1 block on the east side. And it should only take, hopefully it shouldn't take that long. If it does, that's a bad sign. But it should only take maybe an hour or 2, something like that. If you are interested in doing it, please don't install Cassandra in the meantime. We want to get an untainted experience. So I'll be sitting in the back with cards. So if you're interested, just come and get a card from me and I'll talk to you. And like I said, $100 gift card for doing it, a chance to win a trip to the Cassandra Summit. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, for the next one, let's see here. Next up is Patrick talking about phone, Oracle, and food safety.
Can I borrow a laptop?
What kind of laptop do you need?
Whatever, anything with a browser.
Does somebody have a laptop that we can borrow that we can hook up to this? Josh, did you already put yours up? Come on. I know your laptop is, this is the communal, I mean, he has the all-plug sticker on it.
It doesn't work playing video, though.
Don't worry.
So, I mean, I don't know how Patrick's going to be able to tell us. Are you offering any gift cards or anything? Or?
I'm not. I guess I'm offering something that you've probably never considered, which is A, using Clone, B, mixing Clone with Oracle, and then C, making it actually work together in a seamless UI.
There we go. Okay,
So,
well, we've got a computer for it.
Cool. And also, I'm going to be demoing this in front of a client in like 10 days, so this is sort of my practice run. But it's something that I'm really proud of. And basically, we have a lot of Java developers who are really good at creating backends and databases in Oracle, but they're really bad at creating user interfaces. And I work primarily with Plone, and they said, hey, we've got all this data. You do all this cool UI stuff with workflows and whatnot that Plone is really good at with document management and those kinds of things. And they said, why don't we do both? And I said, sure, because what else was I going to say? So let me log in. So I work for a company called Discernus, which is based in Washington, D.C. We do...
Make it bigger.
Yeah, hold on, let me just log in first.
I can't read your password.
Yeah, you can't read my password? Yeah. So this is the development site. We'll make it a little bit prettier for the client. But does this work? So basically, in food safety, what we're trying to do here is if you're interested in beer, which all of us are probably pretty interested in, it's got a variety of ingredients, but it's also in contact with like ground glass, and the label that you have has inks in it, and the glue has, chemicals in it. And so is it safe for your beer to be in contact with ground glass? Can you claim that beer is good for your heart, or whatever you want to claim? Cheerios actually had a huge recall last year just because they changed their wording that made it seem like it was a drug that was reducing your cholesterol. So even just wordings on the box can cost a company millions and millions of dollars. So what we do is try and say, red light, green light. So if we're interested in, I'll just select the list from now. Let's say we've got a list of preservatives that we want. We click select. We've got BHA, which I think actually is something that's really bad. This can be used for a function and a usage. So let's say we want to use BHA because we're evil corporation or something like that in our carbonated water as our usage, and it's, I don't even know what it is. I'm not the regulatory person, so let's say we want to use this as an acidity regulator, and we want to sell this in North America. So I type North America, I move it in here, and I want this to be as easy as red light, green light. So I click run, and then it works. Right. And so it's not permitted, right? Because BHA is like really bad. So, but let's say you're like, well, I really want to use this terrible substance, but maybe I can use it in dairy-based beverages. So I save this profile and I run it again, and I save that one, and I can go in between them, and lo and behold, it's not permitted as dairy-based beverage either. So I'm pretty much screwed at this point. But let's say I want to do some more chemicals in my list, like hydroxypropyl whatnot. And I also want to put this in my milk, as an acidity regulator, and save that. So looks like actually we don't have data on this. So we're using a test database right now. So they've only given me limited results to play with. But basically the idea is these profiles use a content type, which is what Plone does. So we can create an event. I can kick this to my other department. I can kick it to my chemists and scientists and create emails and automated events. Use all the stuff that Plone is good at. And all of these records of, this is legal, this is not legal, or whatever, we use Oracle to generate those rules. And we can do a couple of things, like with recipes. Let's say I want to create this evil recipe that has only BHA and hydroproxy, whatever. We can dynamically run the rules through Oracle and then kick it back. I can manage my recipes in Plone through content types, which are super easy to do. There's a tool called Paster where you do Paster create, and then boom, you've got your content type, and then life is easy, and you can do something that's technologically really crazy complicated when you kind of think about it with the regulatory landscape, and then you create this kind of nice little library interface that everyone is comfortable with. So it's maybe not as sexy as videos and whatnot, but it keeps your food safe. So.
That's it. All right, thank you. So was the theme of that you use Oracle for evil, or?
It was imposed upon me, so.
Okay. The next talk is Marcos. He's going to be talking about Python Argentina.
I need to make this work.
Okay.
Somehow.
I'm going to mute this so that I'm not giving everybody the password.
No, got it?
Here we go. Do you have AirPlay on here?
I should.
Let's see. And here you go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, my name is Marcos. I'm from Argentina, which is South America, right at the south. I've been in Austin like for 3 or 4 weeks maybe. I've recently moved. I'm a Mozilla fellow, working at the Texas Tribune with the guys over there, and whatever. And I'm gonna talk to you about Python Argentina, which is the community based in my country. I can say that we love Python. I'm not sure if we have like statistical facts about this, but I'm pretty sure we really like it. Well, because it's really cool. I can say that the community, the Python community in Argentina is pretty active. I would say that it is like the most active of most of them, between PHP, Ruby, and JavaScript or whatever. I think it's been for a long time, and it's making like really a lot of stuff, like making much noise. That's why we host many Python-related activities. We also join to drink and eat and talk and fool around. And I don't know why, but we have a really hard time finding Python-related jobs. I would say that maybe because Ruby eat that part of the market, but whatever. We have many events like PyCon, which is usually in October. It's free, so if you wanna go and visit Argentina, why not? Maybe you can submit a talk, and if you're lucky, maybe you're gonna get your tickets paid by the organization. So give it a shot. We host many Pi days, which is sort of like the meetups, but more. It doesn't have any fixed frequency. We have meetings to just fool around. We host many sprints, like, okay, let's fix some bugs in Django. So people just get together in some place and start working on it like for a day. We also have like Pcamp, which is super awesome. We just go to the middle of the field in the mountain or wherever. We start hacking like for 3 or 4 days till some of us pass out. Too much coding or whatever. But this event is really, really cool. It's usually in March. So also, if you want to have like a really cool vacation and hack a little bit, you're more than welcome. It's also free, and I think all of the events that we host are free. So we have a website which is really ugly because we're hipsters. We also have a mailing list because, again, we're hipsters, and we are on IRC. I'm sorry. And we have like this Planet. I don't know if you remember like these blogs aggregators that it used to be like in 2005. Well, we have that one, and it's active. We've been involved in many projects, like many translations. One, we built an engine for video games, another engine for video games for kids. That Pilas engine is really good about that. Some of the guys, I don't know why they decided to build an IDE, which is Ninja. also cool. We have a version of the Wikipedia, but offline, that we deliver to every school, and every kid in Argentina has access to it. And many other tools you can check. You are more than welcome, of course. That's it.
Okay, we've got one more. Chris is going to talk about, it's Bike Me? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, it's just, it's a pretty clever name. It's one of the hardest things to do is come up with names of things. And I had another project written in Python called Sheet Everywhere, and that ended up being a pretty cool name. And I was really happy I got a name almost as clever as Sheet Everywhere. And so, how many of you guys know about B-Cycle and bike sharing here? So, 2 people. Whoa, this is a strange keyboard. So, I did not mean to go to this page. That's okay. Pretend you didn't see that. Where is it? Oh, wow. So these are all the B-Cycle stations here in Austin. And that's roughly where we are. And basically I created this because I want to ride B-Cycle, but I don't want to use their app. I just want to pull up my phone, see a map, and get an idea of where the nearest station is and what's the likelihood that it is full. And
Can you make it a bit bigger?
I'm not sure. Whoa.
Yeah, that's just gonna zoom it in. No.
No. And so it's pretty simple. I haven't touched it in a couple weeks, and I guess it's still working, which is pretty good.
We'll let you know if it's different roads.
And so this is the cool thing, I guess, is these indicators show roughly how full they are, but if you open it, you also get a past 12 hours, yesterday's activity, and 1 week ago. And depending on the station, you can get an estimate of the likelihood of what will happen to the station in the near future. So you can see that for the Whole Foods one tends to be tends to follow a trend, and you can see that there's a lunch event, and lunch and rush hour. You can definitely see a lot of patterns, and there's a lot of other things I want to do with this. It was written in Django, which is, I guess, the old OPUG. And the thing I was going to show before was that it's not only in Austin, but oh, it also uses the HTML5 history API, and so I had to go back. But it's also in a bunch of other cities that I feel like I might end up in sometime in the near future.
Are you planning on going to Chattanooga?
I am. I'm planning on going to Chattanooga. Chattanooga is weird because they have one station out in the middle of nowhere. New York City is really cool because their stations, not only do they have a lot of stations, but their stations have a lot of bikes.
And is that still B-Cycle, or is that?
That's Altiva. So right now I have B-Cycle and Altiva, but I could pretty much use any system, mostly because there's this other project, also written in Python, called City Bikes, and they've done a lot of the work of creating a unified API to civic bike sharing data. Bay Area is really weird. I don't know how this works. I've asked people from the Bay Area, and they don't know how it works either. I guess we can see Marcus's GitHub history. And we can also find it on mine.
Make it bigger.
So I'm touching a month. I'm the only contributor. Nothing is secret, really. You could probably, there's no README. That's probably on purpose. I may or may not be violating any terms of services, so I'm like half open source on some of this stuff. And the one thing I wanted to say was that the hobby project I did previous to this was a Flask app, and it was my first serious Flask app, and doing test-driven development in Flask was not fun, and it made me want to use Django again, even though Django has a lot of things we may or may not like. One thing I learned from that was that doing test-driven development in Django is actually fun, especially compared to some other frameworks. And if you use like me, please use my app so that my Heroku Dinu does not go to sleep when I try to check it. And that's it.
That's it for the lightning talks, and we've got one more. Okay, I think we got one more. Right into the wire.
Yep.
In the wire.
Under the wire? Yeah.
You say in the wire or under the wire?
Under.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Forward. Should take over.
Okay, cool. There's enough space, let's see.
You should introduce yourself since you weren't on the board.
Okay. So my name's Chris. I'm a Python developer. I'm working on a startup here at Capital Factory. I think maybe next month I might be able to give a lightning talk about the project I'm working on, but I want to finish up a couple more things with that first. So I'll give a little quick talk about something else that I've been working on the side. Actually, I haven't worked on this project for a couple months now, but it's basically a way of analyzing Python code statically, which I think is one of Python's biggest drawbacks, is that there's not very good static analysis. And so, for example, my favorite languages are Python and Haskell. And the reason why I really like Haskell is because it has great static analysis. When you're programming in Haskell, it's amazing because like when you get rid of all of your compilation errors, almost every time the program works as expected. Whereas in Python, maybe like half the time it works as expected, and half the time you end up running into some exception that occurs that you didn't expect. With Haskell, typically when I program in Haskell, that kind of thing happens much less often. And that's because it has a super strong type system. So what I want to do is, ideally what I want is a language that's kind of in between, because I also don't really like programming in Haskell all the time because it's just harder. Like when you program in Python, there's all these like really simple libraries that everybody knows how to use, and you know, if you search the internet, you get a lot of good Stack Overflow results, and that actually makes programming a lot better experience, is having other people answering those questions online. So the idea is that what I want to do is have a way to make a language that's basically in between Haskell and Python. And I don't want to have to write my own language, so what I decided to do was just find a way to make a stricter version of Python. And that means, for example, things like, this is something I don't like about Python. You say some list, say you define a list, and then you say if a. So right now we're putting a list object where a Boolean value is expected, and the interpreter automatically typecasts that for you. And so this is considered Pythonic, And so it's considered to be a good thing by the Python community, but it's actually a way of introducing new bugs. So what I would like to do is require you to do something about this. Like, you could theoretically have like an explicit typecast there that does the same thing. You could say like something like truthy of A, and then in here you could potentially do all kinds of like fancy type analysis if you really wanted to, but I wouldn't use that. I would use something more like if length of A is greater than 0 or something like that, because this is very explicit. It's explicitly semantically saying like, what are you doing here? So that's one of the types of things that the static analysis would do, is it will require that like wherever you're expecting a bool, you're going to get a bool. But that's not the only thing that it's doing right now. The other thing it's doing is something inspired by Haskell, which is like maybe type inference. So if in Python you don't talk about maybes that often, but they're all over the place. Any kind of function that looks like this. So let's say we have a function, let's see. And so if, let's say return, maybe some number, let's say 1 if, kind of slow typing with one hand. If random.random is greater than 0.5, else none. I can't even fit this in. All right, so this function is a function that sometimes returns integer and sometimes returns a none. So if you were to write this same type of function in Haskell, you would say that the return type of this function is maybe integer, because sometimes it's going to return an integer, sometimes it's going to return none. So it's like a maybe integer. That would be like the actual type of this return value. So Python doesn't have that kind of annotation, but that doesn't mean that we can't actually statically analyze that. So the program that I made, what it does is it will, if you were to do something like this, if you were to say A is equal to F, at this point the program would say, okay, A has type maybe integer. And then if you were to then do B is equal to A plus 1, then it's going to say, well, you're adding an integer to a maybe integer. Those are two different types, and that's a type error. So the reason why the type error is because at this point in the program, you don't know if A is none or an integer. And so potentially, the value of A could be none, and you could potentially have an exception there. So in this situation, you actually would like to get a type error. This is something that Python just doesn't help you with. But with the static analysis tool that I'm writing, what it will do is it will give you an error for that. But if you say, if A is not none, and then in here you say B is equal to A plus 1, it recognizes that you are now inside of a context in which A is not none, and therefore it's okay to do this. So that's called maybe type inference, where it's saying inside of this context, it unwraps the maybe. It's no longer a maybe integer, it's now an actual integer. And it's also smart enough to do this, where you say if A is not none and any other condition here, it's smart enough to realize that this statement implies that A is not none. If both of those are true, that implies that A is not none, and therefore you still get the maybe unwrapping. But if you were to say, or some other condition, now you can't assume that anymore, and you'll still get the type error. So this is what I have working right now with the maybe type inference, plus a bunch of other things. Another thing that I also do is, if you were to say A is equal to A plus 1, that gives you an error because you're redefining something. So it's this is kind of a separate issue, but it's another thing that I try to avoid while programming is reassigning things. Because when you program functionally, you never have to reassign things, and that actually makes it makes it a lot easier to avoid having bugs. Let's see. So yeah, I think that's enough. I'll give an update if I have any more progress on that later.
Where can people see this?
This is not available yet. It's not working. Well, it's working only for a subset of the Python language. In particular, it works for basically everything except for classes. Which is like, I mean, yeah, which is it's already working for maybe the majority of the language, but you know, classes are kind of tricky, so I have to still implement that.